It was 2:34 a.m. when I first saw it. The cemetery, just outside of town, looked like it always did, silent and desolate. But something about it that night was different. I had passed by it hundreds of times before, but tonight I could feel an overwhelming presence that I couldn't shake. The wind whispered through the dead trees, and as I slowed my car to a crawl, I noticed something strange. There was a figure standing in the shadows between two gravestones. The figure was tall, unnaturally tall, and its features were distorted in the dim light, like it wasn't entirely human. I don't know why I didn't just drive away. I should have. But there I was, sitting frozen, staring at the figure. Didn't move, didn't blink. Just stood there, as if waiting for something, waiting for me. It felt like my heartbeat had stopped as I watched, unable to tear my eyes away. Something was wrong. It wasn't just the figure, though. The air around the cemetery had become thicker, heavier, like it was holding its breath. My car engine sputtered, and I had to quickly restart it. That's when the figure started moving. Slowly, almost impossibly slow. Its limbs stretched and contorted in unnatural ways as it came toward me. I didn't know how to react. My hands shook on the steering wheel. I could feel my throat tightening as the figure grew closer. I wanted to scream, but my voice wouldn't come out. It was almost like something had paralyzed me. And then it stopped, right next to the car. I could hear the faintest whisper, so soft I wasn't sure if I had imagined it. But then, the whisper turned into a voice, low and cold, like it was coming from the ground itself. "Why are you here?" it asked. I froze. My brain tried to process what was happening. My heart felt like it was about to explode in my chest. I tried to tell myself it was just my mind playing tricks on me, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this was something far beyond anything I had ever encountered. But before I could speak, the voice spoke again. "You shouldn't have come." And with that, it disappeared. The cemetery, the figure, the oppressive air, all of it vanished in an instant, like it had never been there. I sat there, breathless, staring at the empty space where it had been. What was that? My hands were still trembling as I drove away, my mind racing with questions. What did it mean? Why did it speak to me? And most importantly, what had I just experienced? It's been a week since that night, and I haven't been able to shake the feeling that it's not over. I don't know what I encountered that night, but I can't help but feel that whatever it was, it's still out there, watching me, waiting. But maybe I'm just losing my mind. I don't know. All I know is that I'm scared to go back near that cemetery ever again. Something tells me that if I do, it won't just be me that leaves. It's been days since that night, but I can still hear the voice, echoing in my mind like a bad dream that refuses to fade. I've tried to push it out, to tell myself that it was just my imagination running wild. But no matter how hard I try, I can't escape the feeling that something is waiting for me, watching me. Every time I close my eyes, I see that figure, tall, distorted, and so impossibly wrong. I told myself I wouldn't go back to the cemetery, but curiosity has a way of breaking through fear. And so here I am, sitting in my car in the same spot, looking at the old wrought iron gates. The cemetery looks different tonight, somehow. The air is still, like the whole world is holding its breath. I feel my heart pounding in my chest as I turn off the engine. The lights from my car illuminate the dark path ahead, but they don't reach far enough to reveal anything beyond a few feet. A breeze picks up, sending leaves scattering across the ground, and for a moment, I think about leaving. But then, I hear it, soft, barely audible at first, like a whisper in the wind. "Come closer." I freeze. It's the same voice, the same cold, hollow tone from that night. I don't know why I don't leave. Maybe it's the need for answers. Maybe it's something darker, something I can't control. Whatever it is, I step out of the car and start walking toward the gates. My breath feels shallow, my skin prickling with the sensation that I'm being watched. The path leading into the cemetery seems longer than I remember, as if the place itself is stretching and shifting, twisting in on itself. As I walk deeper into the cemetery, the shadows around me seem to grow. The gravestones, old, weathered, and worn, look like twisted faces in the darkness, staring at me with hollow eyes. My footsteps crunch on the gravel, echoing in the silence, and I begin to feel like I'm not alone. The weight of the air presses down on me, suffocating me with its heaviness. And then I hear it again. "Why did you come back?" The voice is louder now, almost like it's speaking directly into my ear. I spin around, but there's nothing there. No figure, no movement, just the quiet rustle of the wind through the dead trees. I start to turn back, but then I see something in the distance. A figure. It's standing near a large, crooked oak tree, its silhouette barely visible in the dim light. I can't make out any features, but the figure is tall. Too tall. And the way it stands, it doesn't look right. It's as if it's stretched, bent at impossible angles. I want to scream. I want to run. But my feet are glued to the ground. My body refuses to move. The figure steps forward. Slowly. And then, in a voice that feels like it's coming from the very earth beneath me, it says, "You shouldn't have come." The ground beneath my feet shifts, and I stumble, almost falling. I look down, and for a split second, I swear I see something moving beneath the dirt. A hand, long and gnarled, pushing its way out of the ground. That's when I hear it. A distant, low growl. A noise that seems to vibrate in my bones. It's getting closer. I turn, my heart pounding in my chest, and I see the figure moving toward me again. This time, faster. Much faster. I don't know how, but my legs start moving. I run. I run as fast as I can, back down the path, past the gravestones, past the twisted shadows that seem to reach for me. But no matter how fast I run, I can feel it gaining on me. The growl grows louder, closer. I don't stop until I reach my car. I can hear it now, heavy, labored breathing, like something's right behind me. I slam the door shut and start the engine. My hands are shaking so badly that it takes me 3 tries to get the car moving. I look back once, just once, and that's when I see it. Standing by the gates, watching me, its long, twisted limbs stretching out from the shadows. I can't explain it, but I know one thing for sure. It was waiting for me to come back, and it won't stop until it gets what it wants. It's been 3 weeks since I last stepped foot near that cemetery, but I can't shake the feeling that it's following me. At first, I thought I was just being paranoid, that I had seen something I wasn't supposed to see, and my mind had made up the rest. But then, things started happening. Small things at first, objects moved, shadows in the corner of my eyes, but they've been escalating. Last night was when it all became real. I woke up to the sound of scratching. Faint at first, like something small, like a rodent, scurrying across the walls. But then it grew louder, more deliberate. I could hear it, scratching at the window, the glass rattling as if something was trying to get in. My breath caught in my throat as I sat up in bed, heart racing, my skin clammy with sweat. I was alone, or at least I thought I was. I got out of bed, my legs like jelly beneath me, and tiptoed toward the window. The scratching continued, relentless. I peeked through the blinds, but I didn't see anything. Just darkness. Nothing. I told myself it was nothing, just a tree branch or some stray animal. But as I started to turn away, I saw it. A figure standing in the yard, just beyond the light of the street lamp. Tall, impossibly tall, with limbs that stretched and twisted at unnatural angles. Its face, if you could call it a face, was obscured by the shadows, but I could feel its eyes on me. I could feel it looking right at me, like it knew I was there. My stomach twisted, and every instinct screamed at me to run, to hide. But my body was frozen, unable to move. I couldn't tear my eyes away from the thing standing outside. It was as though something was pulling me toward it, like it was calling me. And then, in the coldest, most bone-chilling voice I had ever heard, it whispered, "Come outside." I don't know what happened next. It was like I lost control of my own body. I found myself walking toward the door, my hand turning the handle as if it wasn't my own. The air felt thick, suffocating, as if the walls themselves were closing in around me. My heart pounded in my chest as I stepped out into the yard, the night air biting at my skin. The figure was still there, still watching me. And then it moved, slowly at first, but with a speed that shouldn't have been possible. It took long, unnatural strides toward me, its limbs bending and twisting as if they weren't meant to move that way. My mind screamed for me to run, but my feet were glued to the ground. "Why are you doing this?" I finally found my voice. My throat felt dry, cracked, but the words came out. The figure stopped, its twisted form hovering just a few feet away. The whisper came again, but this time it wasn't in my ear. It was inside my head. "Because you came, and now you belong to it." The words sent a chill through my entire body. I didn't know what it meant, but I knew, deep down, that it wasn't talking about the cemetery anymore. Whatever this thing was, it wasn't just some ghost or nightmare. It was something much older, much more sinister, and I had unwittingly walked right into its trap. Suddenly, the ground beneath my feet began to tremble. The grass swirled in the wind, and the air grew thick with a low, pulsing hum. The figure reached out, its fingers impossibly long, stretching toward me with a speed that left my mind spinning. Couldn't breathe, couldn't move. I could feel its fingers brush against my skin, cold as ice, sending shockwaves of terror through my entire body. And that's when I saw it. Under the figure's skin, there was something else. Something darker. A swirling, shifting shadow that seemed to be moving underneath, as if the figure itself wasn't even real. It was just a vessel. Before I could react, the world around me went black. The last thing I felt was its hand tightening around my wrist, pulling me down into the earth itself. I don't know how long I was gone. Minutes? Hours? Days? Time no longer felt like it existed in the place I had been pulled into. It wasn't darkness, not exactly. It was a kind of suffocating void, where the air felt thick like I was underwater and I couldn't breathe. I could feel the weight of it pressing in on me, and I could hear something distant, far off, like whispers calling my name. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. I wanted to move, to escape, but my body was frozen, locked in place, as if I was being held by invisible chains. My heart raced, and I could feel the pulse in my temples, but everything else was numb. And then I heard the voice again, this time louder, clearer, and it wasn't just in my head, it was all around me. "You shouldn't have come." The words cut through the void like a knife. The figure's twisted, distorted form appeared in front of me again. But this time, there was something different about it. It wasn't just a creature anymore. It was something ancient, something older than anything I had ever known. Its face, if you could call it a face, was covered in cracks, like it was breaking apart at the seams. The shadow inside it writhed, pulsing, as if it was alive in its own right. "You belong to it now," the voice rasped. "It has claimed you." I tried to fight it. I tried to push against whatever was holding me, but it was no use. It was as if I had no control over my own body. I couldn't even close my eyes. I could feel the darkness closing in, swallowing me whole. The figure reached out toward me again, its fingers stretching with unnatural speed. This time I saw what it was reaching for. Beneath the cracks in its skin, beneath the shadow, there was something worse, something that shouldn't have existed. It was a swirling mass of faces, mouths open in silent screams, eyes wide with terror, all trapped inside, writhing, as if trying to escape. Couldn't breathe, couldn't move. Then, the figure spoke again, but this time it wasn't just the voice of the thing in front of me. It was all around me, coming from the very air, vibrating through my bones, through my soul. "Welcome to the void," it said, "where time doesn't exist, and the souls of the lost are never free." Suddenly, the world shifted. The ground beneath me cracked, and I felt myself falling into the darkness, deeper and deeper, as if the earth itself was swallowing me whole. But before I hit the ground, everything went silent. The void, the whispers, the figure, they all disappeared. For the briefest moment, I thought I was dead. And then I woke up. I was back in my bed. My sheets were tangled around me, my heart still pounding in my chest. My body was drenched in sweat, and the air felt thick with the same oppressive weight as before. Took me a few moments to realize that I was alive, that it wasn't real. But even as I tried to calm myself, I could feel something lingering, something cold, something watching. I looked around, and there, standing in the corner of my room, was the figure, just watching me. But it didn't move this time. It didn't say anything. It just stood there like it was waiting for me to do something, to make a move. I don't know how, but somehow I forced myself to look away. I closed my eyes and told myself it was just a nightmare. But even as I did, I could still feel its presence, just beyond the edge of my vision. I know now that I'm not free. Whatever it is that I encountered, it isn't finished with me. It's still out there, waiting, watching, and no matter how far I run, no matter where I go, I know that it won't stop until it has me. I don't know why I'm still here. Maybe I'm just too afraid to leave, to face whatever's waiting for me outside. But one thing is certain, I can never escape it. It's in me now. It's part of me, and it's never letting go. I wish I could tell you that I was wrong, that it was all just some bad dream, some nightmare brought on by my own fear and stress. But it's been weeks now, and the whispers haven't stopped. They've gotten worse. It's like it knows when I'm awake, when I'm sleeping, when I'm alone. Like it's always watching, always waiting. Sometimes, I can feel its presence in the corner of my room, watching me with that impossible gaze, stretching and bending in ways that defy logic. But most of the time, it's the whispers that drive me to the edge. They're subtle at first, just soft murmurs that I can almost ignore. But then they grow louder. They start to feel like they're inside my head, scratching at the edges of my thoughts, twisting them, warping them. I can't think straight anymore. Every time I try to focus, it's like something else is there, pulling me in a different direction. At night, I can hear the scratching again. The sound that started this whole thing. It's not at the window anymore. It's coming from within the walls. I've checked. There's nothing there. No rats, no animals. But the sound doesn't stop. It gets louder, as if something is crawling through the walls, following me, closing in. A few nights ago, it got worse. I was lying in bed, exhausted, trying to block out the whispers, when I heard it, a thud, like something heavy dropping to the floor. My heart skipped a beat. I thought maybe it was just a noise from outside. But then I heard it again, and again. It was getting closer. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The air around me felt thick, suffocating. I tried to tell myself that it was just my mind playing tricks, but deep down, I knew it wasn't. Then the scratching started again. But this time, it wasn't just on the walls. It was on the floor right next to my bed. I could feel it moving slowly, deliberately, under the sheets. My skin crawled, and I tried to pull away, but my body wouldn't respond. My arms felt heavy, like they were being held down. And then I saw it. A shadow. Just a flicker, but it was there. In the corner of my room. A figure. Its shape was familiar, but its face was twisted wrong. It wasn't the same creature I'd seen before. This one was different. The skin on its face was torn, exposing dark, hollow eyes that seemed to stare straight through me. Its mouth was open, gaping, stretching impossibly wide, revealing rows of sharp, jagged teeth. I tried to scream, but nothing came out. It reached toward me. Its fingers, long and claw-like, scraped against the floor, dragging along the wood with a noise that made my teeth ache. I tried to move, to get away, but my body refused to obey. The air around me seemed to warp, suffocating me, pulling me closer to it. And then, I heard the voice again. But this time, it was not a whisper. It was a scream that came from the very air, from the walls, from the shadows. You shouldn't have come back. You never should have come back. I thought I was going to die. I thought it was over. But then, just as the creature's fingers brushed against my skin, there was a sudden loud crash from outside. A window breaking. I don't know why, but in that moment, it was enough to break whatever hold it had on me. I bolted out of bed, my legs shaking, my chest heaving with ragged breaths. I ran to the window, desperate to see what had caused the noise, but when I looked outside, there was nothing there. The yard was empty. I don't know what happened. Maybe it was my mind playing tricks on me. Maybe I imagined it all. But as I turned away from the window, I felt it again. The eyes on me. The presence. I'm not safe. I know that now. Still here, watching me. The whispers are louder now. The scratching more frantic. And the figure? It hasn't gone away. Still here. It always has been. The thing in the cemetery, whatever it was, it didn't just want me. It wanted my soul. It wanted me to belong to it, to become part of it, to be consumed by the darkness it represents. And now it's not just in my mind. It's in my house, in the walls, in the very air I breathe. It won't let go. I don't know what to do anymore. I don't know how to escape. The figure is always there, always waiting for me to slip up, to make a mistake. It will never stop until it has me completely. And I don't think I'll ever be free. It's hard to put into words what's been happening. At this point, I don't know if I'm losing my mind or if this is some twisted reality I'm trapped in. I've tried everything. Talking to a therapist, reaching out to friends, even considering calling in an exorcist. But nothing works. The whispers continue, always growing louder, always closer, always just behind me. And the worst part? I know it's not just in my head. I've seen it again. That figure. Its twisted limbs, its grotesque face. It's become a part of my life now. Like a shadow I can never escape. No matter where I go, it follows me. No matter how fast I run, it's always just a step behind. Last night, it came to my house again. I had just finished dinner, feeling the weight of the day dragging on me. I was exhausted, my mind frayed by the constant pressure of it all. I sat in my living room, the TV flickering in front of me, trying to distract myself from the gnawing fear that had become a permanent part of my life. That's when I heard the scratching again. This time, it was not from the walls, but from the door. I froze. I didn't dare move. The scratching was slow at first, like nails dragged across wood. And then it picked up, becoming quicker, more frantic. My heart hammered in my chest as the sound grew louder, closer. And then the voice. You can't escape. I had to get out of there. I had to. I grabbed my keys and bolted out of the house, not bothering to lock the door behind me. The night air hit me like a wave of ice water, but I didn't stop. I didn't even look back. I just kept running as fast as I could. I don't even remember how far I ran or where I was going, but somehow my legs carried me to the old cemetery again. The one I thought I'd left behind forever. My lungs burned, and I could feel the cold sweat trickling down my neck. The gates loomed ahead of me, their rusted iron bars rising into the darkness. For a moment, I thought about turning around, but I knew it was pointless. I wasn't running away anymore. I was being drawn in. I had no choice but to face whatever it was that had been haunting me. I walked into the cemetery, my every step echoing in the stillness of the night. The air was thick, the silence so complete it felt suffocating. I could feel something watching me, waiting, and then I saw it. The figure. It was standing at the far end of the cemetery, just like the first time, tall and impossibly twisted. Its limbs were stretched unnaturally, its face a patchwork of cracked skin and hollow eyes. But this time it didn't speak. It didn't need to. I could hear the whispers now, not from the figure, but from all around me, from the gravestones, from the ground itself, from the air. It was everywhere, seeping into my mind, into my soul. You belong here, the voice said. But it wasn't just one voice. It was dozens, hundreds, even like the voices of the dead, speaking in unison. You can never leave. I backed away, my legs shaking, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I turned, but it was no use. The cemetery had changed. The path that had once led me out now seemed to stretch on forever, looping around, as though the very ground beneath me was shifting, twisting, trapping me. I could feel the ground trembling, and the air grew thick with the presence of something ancient, something powerful. It wasn't just a creature anymore. It was the very essence of the cemetery itself. The graves, the bones, the souls of the dead, they were all part of it. I started running again, but it was pointless. The figure was always there, just behind me, its twisted limbs reaching out, its hollow eyes never leaving me. I stumbled, falling to the ground, and when I looked up, I saw the faces, hundreds of them, writhing beneath the earth, pushing up from the graves, their eyes wide with terror, their mouths open in silent screams. And then I realized, it wasn't just watching me, it was feeding on me, on my fear, on my terror. The more I ran, the more it grew stronger, the more it fed. I tried to scream, but no sound came out, and that's when I understood. I had become part of it. I had always been part of it. The figure, the voices, the cemetery, it wasn't just something outside of me. It had been inside me all along. And now there was no escape. I looked up one last time and saw the figure standing over me, its face impossibly close. The world around me faded, and everything went black. I don't know if anyone will ever read this. I don't know if I'll ever leave this place. But if you're reading this, if you're still out there, don't go near that cemetery. Don't let curiosity lead you into its grasp. Because once you step inside, once you hear the whispers, there's no way out. And believe me, I know. It's been months since I last wrote. I don't know how long I've been here. Days, weeks, maybe longer. Time doesn't seem to exist anymore. It's hard to describe this place. This place I'm trapped in, but I'll try. The cemetery is everywhere now. I thought I escaped it, but I was wrong. It's inside me. It's all around me, even here in this void. The whispers never stop. I can hear them in my mind, in my bones, in the air around me. Sometimes they feel distant, like they're just a few steps away. Other times, they feel suffocating, overwhelming, as if the voices are pressing against my very soul, demanding my attention, pulling me deeper. The figure still follows me, still watches. Its twisted form is always at the edge of my vision, just beyond reach, but I can always feel its eyes. It's like it's waiting for something, waiting for me to understand, waiting for me to give in. I've tried to fight it, but there's no use. It's a part of me now, part of this place. I've lost track of how many times I've tried to escape. I've run, screamed, begged for help, but no one hears me. No one can hear me. I'm alone in this place. Alone with the whispers, alone with the figure, alone with the unrelenting presence that pulls me deeper into its grip. I don't know what it wants. I don't know why it's doing this, why it's trapped me here. But I've learned something terrifying. I've learned that it doesn't matter what I do. It doesn't matter how hard I fight. The cemetery, the figure, the voices, they're part of me now. They always were. I thought I could escape. I thought I could outrun it, but now I realize it's not just a place. It's not just a figure. It's an entity, a force, and it's taken me body and soul. I've become a part of the cemetery, a part of the darkness, a part of the whispers that never stop. And the worst part? I can feel it pulling me deeper still. There's something beneath the earth, beneath the graves, something ancient, something powerful. It's waiting for me to surrender completely, waiting for me to become one with it. I can feel the ground shifting beneath me, the weight of it pressing against me, pulling me down. And even though I try to resist, I can't. I know now that there's no escape. No matter how far I run, no matter how hard I fight, the cemetery will always find me. I'll always be a part of it. The figure was right. I never should have come back. But I didn't have a choice. None of us ever do. Once you step foot into the cemetery, once you hear the whispers, you're already claimed. And now, like everyone else before me, I'm trapped. Forever.